Hello everyone. So as a part of our aim to make you as aware as possible when it comes to study abroad, today we have Brian Exelbierd from University of Delaware, United States of America. How are you, Brian? Thank you for coming to the Globalizers.
Thank you for having me, Prashant. It's my pleasure.
So, before we really get on with the conversation, I want to know how has been your experience in India and specifically in Indore so far?
India is fantastic. This is my 6th trip to India, and the people are amazing. The culture is just wonderful. To experience stories that I didn't know as a child and that I get to learn is just incredible. But more importantly, the fact that I get to visit places like Indore and central India is really amazing. My colleagues who've been to India have never left the Tier 1 cities, and here I am getting to experience the real India. It's been everything from local delicacies like poha, which I've been happily eating for breakfast.
You like the poha?
I really do. But also just the quality of the people. They're so wonderful and nice to meet.
Wonderful. So let's get the discussion going. And since you've been with the admission team of University of Delaware, and you have a very, very fair idea of what is the philosophy of, universities, the way they select their students. So I want you to tell all of them that how a university is going to select a student when it comes to admissions and scholarships.
As you know, the admissions package for a university is very large. It contains a lot of items. What we look for when we're looking at students is, first, is the student, do they have clarity of goal? Do they know why they want the degree? Do they have a realistic expectation for where the degree is going to take them? Does it fit with their past? Does it make sense for their future? After that, we're going to take a look at their academic qualifications. And this starts with things like GRE and GMAT, which are very predictive about ability to be successful in university, as well as things like the GPA and the resume and work experience that a student may have. All of the components that are going to contribute to their classroom ability.
So there's nothing like one thing which guarantees an admission or denial?
No, not at all. In fact, my MBA director likes to say that there's no one thing he can read which will definitely sway his opinion in either direction.
Great. And coming back to letters of recommendation, a lot of people think that letter of recommendation should be from big people or the recommender has to have a PhD. So this is one of the misconceptions that I come across very frequently. So what is your take on that?
That's absolutely not the case. What we really want is a letter of recommendation from someone who knows you, who has actually seen you in the classroom, the workplace, or in a volunteer situation. We don't care what their job title is as much as we're concerned about how they can comment on you. Now, recommendation letters can sometimes be very hard to get. Recommenders are concerned that they're not going to be able to give a good recommendation or that it's going to be difficult to do. At Delaware, we ask you for their email address. We send them a form. They fill out literally like a checkbox survey. And then they have a free space where they can write what they want to about the candidate. What I recommend to candidates is talk to your recommenders. Talk to them about what your goals are. Explain what your future is. Explain how your past supports that. Remind them of projects that you've done together or courses that you were in so that they can comment on the things that directly affect your application. Lastly, keep in mind that for many professional programs, we would much prefer to see professional recommendations. That's people you've worked with or done volunteer work with. For research programs, we'd much prefer to see academic recommendations, professors that you've had. For some programs, it's a combination of both. At Delaware, you're typically allowed up to 3 letters of recommendation, and we suggest that you submit all 3, although 2 is typically the minimum for any program.
Majorly for masters is 3 and for MBA it's 2.
That's correct.
That's great. So how do you think, another misconception that I really see with people, when it comes to having a poor academic record, a lot of the students have backlogs and they right away assume that since we have 1 backlog, 4 backlog or 6 backlogs, we cannot study outside India, specifically states. So what is your take that if somebody has a poor academic record, is he still standing a chance?
Absolutely. A poor academic record will make it harder to get into graduate school, but it doesn't rule it out. One of the things to keep in mind is that your academic record, as we've said, it's just one part of the application.
Correct.
So if you've got some issues in your academic history, then by all means, explain to us what happened. If we have to make up a story, the story we make up is usually a lot worse than the truth. Also, point out where the backlogs or the poor academic performance has direct impact or doesn't have direct impact on future goals. Recalculate a second GPA without the courses that aren't pertinent to the program you're applying for if that helps your GPA. But by all means, look at alternative ways to show your abilities. This can be done through GRE or GMAT, which is a test that shows some academic performance. The other thing is maturity. Waiting a couple of years, working successfully can often help with a poor academic record because you stop being the student that struggled in the past and you now have a history of success to show in the workplace.
Wonderful. While in our previous discussions, informal ones, I think you had put a wonderful perspective when it comes to scholarships. So can you help explain the entire audience regarding what is the structure of scholarships of TAs and RAs and the tuition waivers, so they can understand how actually one gets these scholarships in the US?
So you can think about scholarships in two buckets, really. There's merit-based scholarships and then there's need-based scholarships. For many U.S. schools, international students aren't eligible for need-based scholarships.
Correct.
And this is just because it's very hard for us to accurately assess need equally across the globe. So we look to home country governments to support their need-based students, just as we in the U.S. support our own need-based students. Merit scholarships covers an entire range of things. People like to talk about assistantships separately, so I'll do so. With an assistantship, we're looking at the student's background and their future performance relative to our faculty's teaching and research objectives.
Both of them.
Right. So in a professional program, if you have a background in an area that we research or teach in, we may give you an assistantship so you can assist those faculty members.
Correct.
By the same token, if your background is something that we do professionally, we may ask you to work in one of our offices doing that skill for us because we need the assistance in that area professionally.
Like web designing, for example.
Exactly. Web design, marketing, even such things as IT and finance. If you think about it, universities do all of those functions. An assistantship is unique in one sense in that it typically includes a scholarship, which would waive portions or all of your tuition. And it also includes a stipend, which is like a salary that compensates you for the work that you do in the office or for the faculty member. Typically, the most you will ever work is 20 hours a week, so you do have time still to study. Now, the other category of merit scholarships are typically given to students that we want to attract to our program.
Correct.
They're students who maybe have a strong academic background, in a professional program have a strong work background, maybe they scored really well on GRE or GMAT. We also look for students who are interesting. And by interesting, we mean that they're going to bring a voice to our classroom that's going to provide a different viewpoint. We want diversity of thought in our classroom. At Delaware, our graduate classes are 35 students or less in almost all cases. So we don't want to have 35 people in a room who all think identically. We want there to be some challenge and discussion. That's an important part of the American education process.
Wonderful. Another concern that our prospective students have regarding the job market in the U.S. And I mean, of course, they want to study, but they want to apply whatever they have learned in the classroom session. So, can you tell our lovely audience regarding the job markets in the U.S.?
Job market in the U.S. is strong for the most part. You're looking at professional positions which haven't been as affected as much by the worldwide economic issues. One thing to keep in mind is that while some students do wish to work, others choose to return home. There's no issue with either choice. For students who do want to work in the United States, we find that flexibility is very important. You need to be willing to think about positions all over the country, as well as positions that might be slightly aligned to the left or right of your ultimate goals. The idea is that first job is a stepping stone, not necessarily the last step. The other thing to keep in mind is that you should do internships while you're in your program, and you should work with our Career Services Center. They're there to help you learn how to present yourself in a U.S. job interview, format a resume, and also do all of the presentations that are required for a job in the United States. The last thing to keep in mind is that many jobs in the United States go unadvertised.
Okay.
So it's important to create a strong network, not just from the alumni network at a school like Delaware, but also from the direct network of your peers and colleagues in the classroom, especially if you have the opportunity, such as with our MBA program, to interact with the part-time domestic students who are already employed. This is a great source of employment opportunity.
And even other platforms like LinkedIn and all?
Absolutely. You need to be on LinkedIn. You need to look at the half-dozen major job sites, but also the specialty sites for your specialty area. And don't forget your faculty. Many of them are doing research that uses industrial data, and they have access to those industrial people.
So guys, that was Mr. Brian from University of Delaware enlightening all of you regarding so many wonderful and so many critical issues when it comes to applying to the United States of America in various universities. Brian, we thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It was wonderful talking to you, and we hope to have you back here in the Globalizer studio very soon. Thank you so much.
I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.